I'm not a lawyer, but today was the closing arguments for the YNW Melly Double murder trial, and I'm gonna break them down. This is going to be a two-part video. Part one will be dedicated to the prosecutor's closing arguments. Then part two, I'll talk about the defenses. So the prosecutor used her closing argument to attempt to tie all of the pieces of the story that she alleges happened together. So she starts with the car and the blood splatter in the car.
That reaction. And that reaction, ladies and gentlemen, tells you that someone is sitting in this seat. Because, as Detective Williams illustrated, it's where the blue star isn't. So there is no blood. There's no blood where someone's would have been sitting. There's no blood where their legs would have been, and you can see on the V that's indicated on that. And there's no blood on the back of the seat.
From there, she goes on to Cortland Henry's shirt and the blood splatter that was found on his shirt.
If you recall, there is a spot of blood on the front of the shirt. That blood, as Kurt Rhodes then told you, belongs to Anthony Williams. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? That during the course of this shooting, Cortland Henry has his back against the driver's seat and is driving wearing this shirt when the shooting occurs. You know from that he is not the shooter. Why? Because if he was the shooter, the angle to get that wouldn't have the blood on the front of his shirt. It would have it coming across the driver's side and towards the side of his shirt, not the front.
She also talks about the video surveillance from when the red car pulled up to the gate of the house. And she tells the jury that they should re-watch that video in particular because Travion Glass was sitting in the front of that vehicle. And she says you'll see on the video that he was awake and moving, which would be contrary to the testimony that Adrian Davis gave for the defense. Okay, and the other thing she brings up, if you remember, Travion Glass says after the studio, Travion Glass did not see Melly again until they all were at Frito Bang's house. And there was a period of time, according to Travion Glass, that Melly left and he didn't know where Melly went, but he was gone and then he came back. This next clip is going to be what the prosecution alleges is where Melly went. And she uses the phone data of Jameson Francois, who is Melly's manager, to account for where she says Jameson was and Melly.
At noon, on October 26th of 2018, Jameson Francois' phone is out there in that same US 27 in Pembroke Road location, and so is that of Mr. Demons. Very odd location to go to. Nothing out there, except evidence of a murder.
So she's alleging Melly and his manager went back to the desolate area, cleaned up the site, and then came back to Frito Bang's house. And here's what she says about the Wi-Fi that the Melly's phone was allegedly connected to.
This part is key. The next Wi-Fi the defendant connects to is not at his house, not at the YNW Castle, but at Frito Bang's. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the defendant committed the murder, dropped off on the side of the road, and then needs to find a way to get home. They can't go home because the other people in the red Mitsubishi, they didn't know what happened. What we had to look at now, Frito's house Wi-Fi, 847. And then look, it connects back again automatically at 1227. That further verifies and corroborates the trip back to US 27 and Pembroke Road at noon that I submit to you was to pick up shell casings.
And the point she's making is that if Adrian Davis's testimony, the guy for the defense, was accurate and that Melly switched cars and then went home with everyone, the next Wi-Fi that his phone should have connected to would have been his house's Wi-Fi. But instead, the next Wi-Fi that the phone connected to was actually Frito Bang's Wi-Fi. And then she kind of ends with, if everybody was going to the same location, what would be the reason that they would have pulled over to allow Melly to switch cars? So that was kind of her closing argument. After she presented, the defense got up and did their closing arguments, and I'll recap that in part two.